Okay, so just a little bit of background for today's meeting. About a month ago, little over a month ago, we were contacted by a state representative asking if we could provide addresses in their district. So we referred them to the city and county, which is normally what we do for that kind of request. And it just happened that so Ryan responded, and he also responded saying that they had just developed this public notification app, and we're going to put it on one of their websites, a hub site. And I thought it was actually using instant apps, and I don't want to go too much into it because I'll let Ryan talk about it. But I thought this is the kind of thing that other people might be interested in, not just the specific app, although this specific app also has a lot of utility, a lot of purpose around it for other people. But just as an example of things that already exist or templates that exist in our GIS online environment that you might not be aware of and might get you thinking about exploring and looking at some of the other templates that are available in Experience Builder, for example, or Instant Apps, or some of the other applications in this low code, no code environment of ours. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ryan and ask you to introduce yourself first, Ryan, and just talk about what your process was. Thank you.
Okay. Sure. Thank you, Arthur. My name is Ryan Laws. I'm a geographic information systems analyst in the Department of Planning and Permitting, specifically with the Honolulu Land Information System. And my priority or my primary focus right now is serving as the administrator for our city's ArcGIS Online organization. So I basically help maintain our public-facing hub sites and kind of oversee the development of new web applications and updating existing web applications and all the underlying data behind them. As Arthur mentioned, he had contacted us about a month ago because they had a question from a state rep about getting a list of addresses for constituents. And actually, this public notification app, or template, I should say, for instant applications, only came out a couple months ago, I think. I mean, was able to attend the Esri UC this past summer, and I think it was still under development at that point. So it got released sometime between July and November. So for today, what I'm planning to do is kind of go over the public notification app that we've developed so far, go over any limitations it may have, and then I'll kind of briefly go over how we set up the instant app. And then after that, I'll kind of go into where you can look for some resources if you're planning on developing your own instant application. Um, so right now on my screen is I have a development copy of the public notification app. Typically, what we do in our section is we try to have both a production version and a development version. So generally what our process will be is if we're starting a new app, there'll only be a development copy. One or more GIS analysts might be working on it. And once we've completed a draft of that, what we'll normally do is we'll send it out internally and generally give a 2 to 3 business day window asking for feedback, at which point we make any changes that or modifications that are suggested. And then we will submit it to our GIS administrator, who will sign off and give final approval, at which point we will post it to one of our public-facing hub websites if it's a public application. And so once that's done, what we'll normally do is immediately create a copy for development internally so that if we have to make any changes in the future, we can always test them out on the development side first internally see if it creates any unexpected bugs or consequences, so we can iron that out before we move and make those changes to the production one. So what I have right now in this development version is the exact same as what we have uh, right now in terms of production on the hub site. When you open the application, it gives you a splash screen of how to create the list, the steps you go through to do them, and kind of gives you some pointers for what the limitations would be depending on what type of layer you're searching on and what results you would like to get. So if I close out this screen, what you'll see right here, right now, there's no legend because we've set the visibility scale to not draw until you get closer in because otherwise the screen gets too cluttered. So if I move in a little bit, you'll see now you have the legend for the parcels, for the TMKs. And then if I move in a little further, the address points becomes populated. So normally what people might do is open the search panel. And if I expand it, right now our default search is to look at all the layers that we have available in the instant app. So that is an Oahu Island locator, which is basically the Esri geocoder, except we've limited the scope of it to just the island of Oahu because we have had instances in the past where if we just use the Esri geocoder, it will pick results from other states. If it's like, a similar street name, and if people aren't paying attention, they'll click on that and they'll have no idea where they are. So by using the Oahu Island locator instead, we eliminate those extra results that people might get confused by. We also have a search by the tax map parcels, which are TMKs, structure address points. I'll get into that briefly in a little bit, as well as regulatory parcels. So those would be the POIs. So one of the differences with structure addresses versus the Oahu Island locator is that the Oahu Island locator is basically kind of like doing a Google search. So it will pull up all the addresses it can, but those might not actually be recognized by the Department of Planning and Permitting as a structure address. So if I start typing in, for example, 650 South King Street, it's going to search on all the layers. And let's see, let's do it that way. So it will tell you which layer it is pulling the results from. And so just because an address shows up in the island locator, that does not mean that it is a recognized structure address by the Department of Planning and Permitting. The result would have to be populated under the address points results. So in this case, expect 650 South King Street. For everyone doesn't know, that's basically the Posse Municipal Building. So it's going to exist in both the island locator and the address points. So if I click on that, it'll partially zoom to the address point. It will give you a small pop-up. You can click further. And so one other thing about structure address points that people can sometimes find confusing is basically our structure address points, we're trying to tie permits and addresses to regulatory parcels. So in some cases, we don't have, or we at the time of construction, we didn't receive like a site plan that specifically laid out the locations of different buildings on the parcel. So we haven't been able to separate them yet. We're constantly working to try and update this information anytime we get more information available. So like, for instance, if I clicked on this right now, you'll see one of four showing that there's four features kind of stacked right there. So for instance, if I close that, the label right now says 1130 Alapai Street. And if I cycled through it, I would see there's 695 South Beretania Street, 650 South King Street, which is what we searched for, 1130 Alapai Street, as well as the underlying tax map key, or the tax parcel that we have. So that you have to be careful sometimes where If you click on an address point, you have to kind of pay attention to how many features there are in the lower right-hand corner because we might have some stacked on top of one another. So in terms of creating a list, I'm going to click create new list. The input layer is the features that you want to create a list of. So for instance, if we want to create a list of address points based on this location, we'll leave it as address points. For options, you have select feature, draw a point, draw a polygon, or draw a rectangle. You can toggle on the search distance. I have the default set for 500 feet. You can obviously change the numerical value. And in terms of um, other options, you can put it in feet, meters, miles, or kilometers. I will point out that one drawback of the app in its, or yeah, the Instant app in its current state is that it does not seem to recognize fractionals. So for instance, if you try to put in 1.5 miles, the buffer is only going to draw 1 mile. So if you have to, do fractional stuff, you might, for like something like miles or kilometers, you might have to do a conversion to feet or meters and kind of do an estimate based on that. So I'm going to say I want to draw a point. You can just
Hey,
drop it.
Ryan,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt. Can you
Yep.
make your screen bigger?
Let's see. How's that? Is that any better?
It's a little bit better.
I think that's the maximum size for
Okay,
this monitor, unfortunately.
okay, good
Oh,
enough.
okay. So what I'll do is I will just drop a point there, 500 feet. We only got 6 address points, so let's just try upping it to 1,000. So now we have almost 70 features selected. And you can see the features highlighted over here. I will click done, and then you have um, the list over here, which you can edit it if you want to. You can delete it. But for now, let's just say done. And now what I'm going to do is say export. The list is selected. It's going to give me the option of PDF or CSV, and it will also give me an option for how many results it wants per page. So we'll just do a PDF for now. I'll export it, and then if I opened it up, it's going to populate. And this list, or the information on this list, is based on the pop-ups that we have enabled. So for instance, for the address points right now, we've enabled like the geocode address field, which is basically like the full number of the address along with the street name. So like 1225 Alapai Street. We have the city attribute field enabled, and we have the zip code. Um, if in the future people find that that's not sufficient and they want additional information, they can email us and let us know like what they're looking for, and we'll see if it is an attribute field that we currently have so that we can modify the pop-up, and that way that would get included like in this list that gets generated. So let's go back here. Let's delete this list. And now let's try creating one based off of like a tax parcel. So what I'm going to do, I'll try create a new list again. Going to go type in a tax parcel, zoom there. And so now the feature is highlighted. And so now once I set a buffer, it's going to buffer off of the edges of the tax map key. So let's do 500. And for now, let's do address points again. So I'll toggle on the search. By default, it's 500. So right now, or 500 feet. So right now we have 129 address points within a 500-foot radius of the edges of this parcel. If I wanted to, say, get information on other tax parcels instead of address points around this one particular tax map key, I could just toggle it, and you'll see the number of features changed from 129 to 93. We would just click done again, uh, export. Let's choose PDF again. Let's see if it's going to hang. Try that again then if it's going to hang. Oh, it did. Okay, there we go. Except we did address points again this time, but you get the idea where if you wanted to, if you decided midway that you wanted to get a list of um, tax parcels or regulatory parcels based off of a feature instead of address points, you could just toggle that layer, that input layer before you hit create the list and export. So that's the basic functionality of the app. And so um, I know sometimes people are interested in getting mailing addresses. So that like for owners of getting for owners of parcels. So for instance, like I know there's some times where, for instance, like the liquor commission is supposed, or if there's going to be a bar or an establishment that sells liquor, they're supposed to notify the owners of parcels within a certain radius. So they might need to get the mailing addresses as opposed to the structure addresses. So in that case, what you might do is you might use this application to generate a list of tax map keys. And then if I go to our open data website, um, you can go to search all of our data. And we do have property ownership tables that are given to us by RPA, Real Property Assessment, that they've allowed us to put up on our website. And right now, for example, I've filtered on a specific TMK and it's giving you all the property owners on there. And so um, this tax map key is actually where you would find 801 South Street, the um, apartment complex. And so Department of Planning and Permitting only has one structure address for that building, just 801 South Street. But obviously there are a high number of people that live in the apartment structure. So you can find all of those on the property ownership table. So if you needed to find mailing addresses for all of these people, you could either try and do the research yourself by taking the listed TMKs you get from our app and then from there going to the property ownership tables and finding it that way. Or I believe you can also email or contact Real Property Assessment Division and give them the list of TMKs and say, I would like the mailing addresses for all the owners on these TMKs. And they might ask you to provide a little information like what are you using it for, as well as your contact information. But they should be able to provide you with that information if you find it too time consuming to like, if you had a ton of TMKs and a ton of owners that you need to find, it might be more efficient just to send Real Property the list and then they can kind of look it up for you. So now moving on to kind of how we made the app. First, you would make a basic web map, pull in all the layers you want from either the Living Atlas or layers that you have within your ArcGIS Online organization. What I did is I actually used an existing map that we use for one of our other applications, and then I basically turned off all the layers that are not going to be used in the instant app to generate, mailing lists and that type of thing. So right now, I just have the address points, the TMKs, and then the regulatory parcels in there, even though I haven't turned on the visibility yet for the regulatory parcel. So in the web map, That's where you would set up the visibility range and you would configure the pop-up. So the pop-up, if you recall, is like the information that ends up in that list that you generate. So like for instance, right now, all I've turned on for that list is the geocode address attribute field, which is the full number plus the street name. I have turned on the secondary address designator and secondary address number. And those things would be like if you had, say, like 650 South King Street, Unit A, Unit B, Unit 1, that type of thing. The secondary address designator would be, say like unit, apartment, building, whatever. And the secondary address number would obviously be like 1, 2, 3, ABC, that type of thing. So obviously we have a bunch of additional fields that I could turn on, but that probably don't have any bearing on people trying to mail out notifications. Like obviously the object ID is not going to have any meaning for people. Um, census tract, census blocked, soy, that's not really going to hold meaning for anyone. So we haven't turned those on. Like I said, if anyone has a need for additional information to get generated in those lists, let us know what it is, and we'll take a look and see if we do have that as an attribute field in the layer, in which case we can turn it on and it would get populated. So basically, within the web map, we went through and configured the pop-ups for every layer that's used in the application. And now if I move, so I have to kind of minimize so this doesn't block me. If I go to the instant app itself, this is what it would look like if you created one from scratch. And by default, the express mode will be turned on. So Esri's express mode is basically the bare minimum you would need to get the instant app functioning. Uh, and you can obviously toggle it on or off. So if you're newer at trying to produce instant applications, um, maybe you could just leave the express mode on at the beginning. And then once you go through the initial checklist, you can kind of take notes or think in your head, like, what else do I want in this application that wasn't available in express mode, and then toggle it off and find where those features are once it's turned off. So for instance, if I leave express mode on, all it's going to say first is what web map do you want to use? You just click select the web map, and then I believe it'll just like basically pull up all the options from within your ArcGIS Online organization. You can always expand it to search for things in the Esri Living Atlas or whatever else would be available to you. It gives you the option to have the app title up here, what layers to include in the basic list creation. Let's see. And then there's some configurations for the searches in the search bar. And and then they also have a widget position. So like if you wanted like the search, as opposed to being the top right, you wanted it in the bottom left, you would play with that over here. But once I turn express mode off, for example, you're going to see that there's a lot more options in some of these sections. For example, the splash screen that I created with kind of just like an overview of how to use this instant app, this was not available in the Express. So in here, there's the basic app details, like the app title, but you also had the option to include headers, footers for the legend. That gave you the option to open it by default when the app opens, or whether it would be turned off and everyone would have to turn it on if they wanted to see the legend. The app introduction, the introduction window is where you're able to create the splash screen that comes up at the beginning. Let's see, and then there's also, behavioral things for the splash screen at the beginning, like do I need to close it each time, and can I have it, can I reopen it anytime I want to? You can play with those options over there. In the public notification section, again, you have the input layers where you can check on which ones you want people to be able to search on. In terms of interactability, can it include things like zoom controls, the home button, compass, bookmarks, all these things you could toggle on or off over here. Base map toggle would be allowing people to toggle the base map that they want. So I know Esri's got a bunch of free base maps available, like imagery, gray canvas or whatever. Uh, I haven't. I don't think that that's necessary for this type of instant app, so I didn't toggle them on. You have things like the search function. One thing I will point out that I think it's a bug with this app that you might have to pay attention to is when you're adding the search source at the start. So I'll just say the map. Let's just say flood zones. So at the very bottom over here, it's asking you what field you want people to search on when you're doing that layer. So like for instance, for address points, I have it selected as the geocode address because that's the full number and the street name. But what I found was, I don't know, it's not behaving right now. Let's try. Let's try another address points. I found that if you don't set the add search field correctly the first time when you're originally setting it up, like let's say I didn't pay attention and I just hit add source and I left it as object ID, which is going to be in this case would be a pointless numerical field that people would have no information on what it meant. If you go back and edit it after the fact and change it to like what you want, like so if I changed it 2 days later to geocode add from object ID, even if I save the changes, publish it, do everything necessary, it reverts to the object ID field as soon as I save and publish. And so it'll go back to being, basically a useless search. So like I said, I think that's a bug. So just when you're setting up the layer search features at the beginning, you have to make sure that you kind of get this right the first time. And if you don't, the easy workaround is just to delete the search and then delete the search source, I should say, and then just re-add it a second time and make sure that you select the correct field when you're initially setting it up. So it's not a huge issue, but it can kind of be a pain if you forget about it, and then you get confused later on for why your search isn't working as intended. So that was basically how we set up the web application. And so now let's kind of go to some resources. So this is the list of app templates that Esri has for instant applications right now. They're updating it as necessary when they add new ones in. So obviously you can scroll through, it will give you, 2 to 3 sentences on what each template is, what you can use it for, and what they also have is a project gallery where I don't think you need an Esri subscription to do this. You can just enter the URL in or search for like sample Esri instant applications. And so on the right-hand side, obviously you can sort by things like template. So for instance, if you wanted to see other public notification apps that people have built, you can sort by that. So kind of see what people are using it for. So for instance, City of Charleston has developed one for road closures. It's going to look very similar to ours, where you just have features. You can create the new list. Let's see. So let's drop a point. And so it's kind of interesting. If you notice right now, it looks like they've managed to figure out how to do fractionals, because if you do 0.2, it's getting 383 results. But now if I try and change it to something else, it's not giving you any results until you do a full number. So I found that kind of interesting where you could sort of find a workaround where if you just had one fractional set as the default, if you knew that was like a really popular um, setting, then maybe you could kind of get around it that way. But the fractional would only work for that specific initial setup that you had, and it wouldn't work for anything else. So that is about all I have for this. I guess if anybody has any questions about any of the topics I talked about, I can do my best to try and answer them. Um, unless Arthur, is there anything else that we need to cover today?
No, in terms of coverage, yeah, I think that's good. If you do have a question, please feel free to just unmute yourself and jump in with your question. If and I've got some questions. Nobody else has. Uh, and I apologize. You might have answered these in the beginning. I was just distracted by the Teams meeting thing, so I had to go back and forth. But you mentioned the Oahu locator and the address point locator. Did you build those custom?
Um, I was not the one who built so for the Wahoo locator, I did not build it. I believe someone within our IT department built it but I think that all they did was um, open like a map with the Esri world geocoder, and I think
Uh-huh.
you just basically draw boundaries and say like this is the extent that I want it to search, and then they just saved it as a geolocator within our
Locator.
organization.
Okay.
So I believe it wasn't very difficult to make.
Okay. And the address point one? Is that
Uh, oh, the address points for
yeah.
the structure addresses, did I create that? Um, no, 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 I did not create that address points layer. That's just the um, layer that we always use in our GIS database.
Is that on your open data
Yeah,
site?
yes, yes. It's just called address points on our open data website, but yes, that is the structure addresses, and then we have actually a bunch of different ownership tables on the open data website. It can get kind of convoluted. So basically, it's the one that I showed, which is called owner data, is basically listing the first or the primary owner for every single property. So obviously there might be multiple owners for some properties, and so in this case, this is just the primary, which is probably where you would want to send mail or inquiries. We have I think it's called on mult, which is the multiple owners for each parcel. So it will list, each listed owner for the parcel. Um, but yeah, I think the owner data one should be sufficient for most of the type of mailing lists that people try to generate.
Okay. And for our state users, it varies from county to county. I think some counties make the this table available or might be built into their TMK layer. Other counties don't. So if you're going to try and do something like this and you have questions or you can't find what you need, you can get a hold of us at gis@hawaii.gov. We can help you or help you find it or reach out to whoever you need to reach out to. And again, I apologize because I kind of missed some of the beginning, but you did some examples with finding an address, location, and then doing a buffer around it. But I think I read it looked like in the app itself, it looked like you could use another layer. For example, we had that request from the representative that you could use like the house district boundaries as your
Oh,
source to
okay.
create the list. Is that
Oh, so they needed a
correct?
neighborhood. Mm,
Yeah.
I could add that in as like, yeah, I could add like a neighborhood board in there. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if
So
that's
that's
exactly what they're looking for, but yeah, no, like
that's
I
another
could look
way
into
that
adding
that
it.
people
Yeah.
might have this interact with the data that they're maintaining is if you have a particular layer that you want to reach out to addresses that are affected, that you could use that rather than just search for a single address or a single TMK.
So we might be
Uh,
able to do council district too in that same
yeah.
vein. Yeah.
And school boundaries, like for
hmm
pesticides or something, you might want the school boundary plus a buffer, something like that. Okay. Um, I should also mention for our state users that to create an instant app or most of these low code, no code apps, you need to be a creator or above. And as most or all of you know, we have a limited number of accounts. Right now, we don't have any creators available. Um, but if you have an interest, again, you can reach out to our office. We might be able to help you out with that, or there are probably more than likely creators within your agency that you could work with. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, I don't see any hands up, or I don't hear anybody. So again, I want to thank you, Ryan. It was very informative, and again, I think this application has application, no pun intended, beyond what the way you're using it. So, and I think that's evidenced by the variety of people that we have attending. So again, I encourage everybody explore some of those templates, some that Ryan showed for the instant apps, but there are similar templates for some of the other applications as well. Urge you to explore. Okay, if nobody has any other questions, then we're going to finish a little bit early. And thank you again, Ryan. Thank you everybody for attending and have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.